You can own Bitcoin as property anywhere where property is not illegal. This is a digital commodity which is better than any physical commodity, and it's a digital property that's better than any physical property, and there really isn't any debate about that.
대표적인 비트코인 강세론자인 마이클 세일러는 현재 약 16만 개에 달하는 비트코인을 보유 중인 것으로 알려진 마이크로 스트래티지의 전 CEO이자 현 회장을 맡고 있는 인물입니다. 현 시점에서 우리가 반드시 비트코인을 보유하고 있어야 한다는 그의 의견을 인터뷰를 통해 알아보겠습니다.
If you study the history of the world, there's 1,000 stories, and 1,000 is an understatement, thousands and thousands of stories where someone takes over a country and then somebody else is in the minority, so they just pass a law taking all their property. If you can flee with your property, then you can start again. And so Bitcoin's the first time we solved that problem. We never really created perfected money, but you could also zap all that you have to your wife in another country, freedom and sovereignty for the human race. And of course, that's desirable to everybody on the planet. In fact, it's not just desirable to all 8 billion people on the planet. Every company wants that. I mean, it's, companies get abused by countries just like people get abused, right?
마이클 세일러는 비트코인이 인류 역사상 처음으로 가장 완벽한 화폐가 될 거라 확신합니다. 그의 최신 인터뷰에서는 비트코인은 모든 회사뿐만 아니라 모든 사회에서 바람직한 화폐라고 말했습니다. 물가 상승과 달러화의 하락은 불가피하며 사람들은 이제 새로운 화폐가 필요하다 생각하고 있습니다. 좋은 해결책이 있죠. 바로 비트코인입니다. 이에 대한 마이클 세일러의 주장을 이어서 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
It also holds out some new ideas, like most of the modern financial system is all about monetizing assets where people are forced to invest in stocks they don't want to invest in because the alternative is to have their money taken from them by inflation. And you have the overvaluation of stocks. If a company ought to be worth 10 times cash flow, it's worth 20 times cash flow because there's a monetary premium assigned to it. In places like Canada or even the US, where the house costs twice as much as it ought to cost because it's valued as an asset to store your wealth rather than as a property to live in. So in the absence of a decent financial asset to store your wealth, people will use Ferraris and Rolexes and Airbnb second apartments, and they'll buy random things they don't need, or they'll buy companies they don't need, and you'll end up with like the meme stock craze and all sorts of financial speculations. But ultimately, these are people that are faced with the choice of, I'm either going to lose everything because of inflation, or I'm going to buy something that I don't need now, but I'll speculate that in the future someone else will buy it from me. In hyperinflation, when the currency collapses, you'll buy crates of soap, you'll buy crates of toilet paper, you'll buy anything. And so that, of course, results in a distortion of the financial markets, and it also results in a seizure of the actual manufacturing markets, right? Goods and services get out of kilter and you end up with shortages and scarcity, and the economy just doesn't work, and eventually you're kind of ripped back to some kind of barter, right? Where the economic engine is just cut in half. And we see that in different places today. And of course, once the currency collapses, right, that's kind of the end of the society, right? That happened in Rome. When the currency collapses, then everybody kind of moves back on their own farm and they produce everything they eat, which is kind of a nice idea, except for the fact that if everybody has to produce everything they own and eat, the carrying capacity of the society is cut by a factor of 20, right? You need specialization. And so that's the challenge we face. And Bitcoin is the first digital monetary network, and it offers people the ability to do something rational. And I guess I'll make one more point, which is most corporations, they basically don't accumulate capital. They give all their capital back to their shareholders, or they go into debt as fast as they can. And the reason that you would go into debt as a company is because positive working capital is dilutive to your shareholders. You want negative working capital. So if you're a rational corporation, you're better off to borrow $1 billion and pay interest on it than you are to keep $1 billion in cash flow and get paid the interest on it. And that's because the interest you get paid on your cash is less than the monetary inflation rate. So what you see see is this LBO craze, and you see most corporations in the world, they dividend out all of their earnings, they buy back their stock, and then they take on debt or they do acquisitions. All of these things are long-term, making the company weaker, but they're doing it because over the near term, those look accretive to the shareholders. The sovereign debt is yielding less than the monetary inflation rate after tax. And Bitcoin represents a cure to that. It's now possible for a company just to accumulate Bitcoin on its balance sheet. So if you generate billions in cash flow, instead of giving it away to your shareholders and paying a dividend tax on it, you just buy Bitcoin with it, and the Bitcoin is appreciating at double or triple the rate of the monetary inflation. So Bitcoin is accretive. You can actually just keep your capital and generate shareholder returns on the Bitcoin, and you will get a progressively more powerful endowment. You'll be better endowed each year. So corporations, instead of having a short life expectancy and crashing because they're running on negative working capital, will actually get stronger, which would be good for jobs, right? You want the companies to not go bankrupt. So it'd be better for jobs, better for consumer options. It would create better products, better services. It would be more stable for the community, right? And that's what Bitcoin offers.
What are your thoughts on the other ones, or do you not even think about the others because you're just so laser focused on Bitcoin?
You know, Bitcoin isn't the first crypto idea. I mean, people tried 50 times before to launch a crypto network, and they all failed for one reason: they were too centralized. There was an attack surface. Satoshi launched it with the Immaculate Conception and then went away. And those Satoshi coins never moved. And so you don't have a company that controls it, and you don't have a beneficiary, and it was given as a gift to the world. If you want to create an open source protocol, I'll give you another example of a successful one. Linux. It's because Linus Torvalds isn't charging you a fee and and isn't controlling Linux. There are plenty of open source protocols that are successful, but ultimately they have to be given to the community. You have to let go of them. And when you let go of them, maybe they have a chance of living. If we look at all the cryptos right now, Bitcoin is the only crypto network universally acknowledged as a commodity. And that means an asset without an issuer. A commodity is ethically superior and legally superior to a security. A security has an issuer and has a beneficiary, and therefore there is someone that has an ethical obligation to be fair and truthful in their disclosures to the counterparties, right? If I can control the amount of my stock, I mean, we can debate, like, is Litecoin an asset without an issuer, or who controls these things? But it's a debate. With Bitcoin, it's universally agreed. It's been endorsed by two heads of the SEC, by the head of the CFTC, by senators, by Congress people, by governors, by mayors, by academics, even by everybody in the crypto community, right? That Bitcoin is sufficiently decentralized to be an asset without an issuer. And for it to be an institutional grade asset, for an institution to buy it, it can't be a security. It needs to be a commodity. So what you need is a commodity. And there's the debate about a few. Then there's a lot of other good ideas and interesting ideas, a lot of fun ideas. Stable coins are interesting. DeFi exchanges are interesting. Crypto exchanges are interesting. NFTs, they're all interesting things, but they're all highly controversial, and there's a lot of uncertainty about the legal status. And right now, the securities regulators in the world have not offered any pathway for a digital security to trade 24/7, 365. I can't trade Apple stock on Saturday afternoon on a crypto exchange, even though it's registered. You see, so there's not a regulatory path for the other cryptos. Now, I'm empathetic, like, it'd be nice if there was. I mean, if you want to grow that industry, you need a digital assets framework. But the sad fact of the matter is, the only thing that we have clarity on is that Bitcoin is a commodity, and you will be allowed to own it as digital property. The Chinese have deemed it property. You can own it in China, you can own it in Russia, you can own it in the United States, you can own it in Europe. You can own Bitcoin as property anywhere where property is not illegal. So like maybe in Cuba, North Korea, where it's illegal for any individual to own anything, right? Pure communist regimes, then it's going to be a difficult situation. But otherwise, this is a digital commodity, which is better than any physical commodity, and it's a digital property that's better than any physical property. And there really isn't any debate about that. You've got good clarity on that. And so my view on this is that Bitcoin is a solution that the universe, that the world has agreed on, that has consensus. It's a good thing and useful. Everything else is a murky, uncertain.
마이클 세일러 외에도 비트코인의 본질에 대해 심오하게 탐구하는 인물과 기업들이 있습니다. 비교할 수 없는 디지털 자산인 비트코인에 대한 세일러의 확고한 믿음은 우리에게 확신을 가져다 줍니다. 비트코인이 완벽한 화폐라는 세일러의 의견에 동의하시나요? 아니면 이미 가지고 계신가요? 마이클 세일러의 인터뷰를 통해 비트코인에 대한 여러분의 관점이 넓어졌다면 구독과 좋아요 부탁드리겠습니다. 오늘 영상이 여러분 모두에게 도움이 되기를 바라며 즐거운 시간을 보내셨기를 바랍니다. 다음번에 뵙겠습니다. 언제나 그랬듯 좋은 일만 가득하시길 바랍니다.